All right, I'm Zach Twardowski. I'm sitting here with my buddy Clint Olson.
How you doing?
We got the applause and everything going. Dude, thanks for joining us. And we're gonna talk about something different to start, but I was just thinking as we were getting rolling, and we have all this nice podcast studio. Our first office, I don't even know if you knew this till I said it last week, but it was 2,000 square feet. It had 5 offices in it. It was real beat up. The walls were all thin, and it was the old police precinct. And your first office was the old holding cell.
Yeah. No windows.
No
nothing.
windows. And we always joked that it was a jail cell. And then what the person that owned that building was like, no, this used to be the precinct, and that really was a jail cell.
It makes a whole lot of sense.
It makes more sense now, right?
Like
So
one lamp in there, and it's like dark.
we've come a long way since then. Yeah, it was one lamp, and we had tables that were just like the plastic folding tables, and we found the cheapest possible building we could find to work out of, and it was you, me, Easton, and Sylvana and Wiley were there. So it's just cool to see how far everyone's come since then, and it's been quite the journey. So thank you for being there and helping us, get to where we've gotten to, man.
Yeah. I mean, you've been a big part of where I've come.
So, and then thinking about that, it's like you're getting started, and I just remember the first dial day, just like us struggling dialing, and you being like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Dude, go lock yourself in your prison cell and dial more." Like, I don't know how else to coach people, but I assume you got to dial more because it seems like the answer. And then, now this last year, your team you personally helped 570 families last year, and your team last month helped 240. So you're doing, 240 to 300 families helped a month as a team. What did you do personally last month?
About 48 families.
48 families helped.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool because you've evolved a lot and you're starting to grow a really big business. And I guess what's your goal for your team by the end of the year?
I would hope to get to about 750
families, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, getting to this point, the 250 to 300, 350, like once you get there, it really starts to roll. But it is a slow process leading up to there sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I remember when I started, some people seem to get there like overnight. And then I'm like, dude, this is going not good. This is going really slow. And then all of a sudden it starts to explode. So, I'd love to start with, you kind of give a little bit of background, how long you've been here total and what you were doing prior to FFL.
Yeah. I've been with FFL since September of 2019. Before that, I worked for basically corporate America, like a lot of other people. Had everything you ever wanted. Worked for Verizon. Well, I shouldn't say Verizon, but small, medium-sized businesses. Made really good money. Had benefits. Had paid time off. All that kind of stuff. Everything that most people would want, but it wasn't really what I kind of thought for myself and what I wanted. And I was actually moving from Arizona to Colorado, and I knew I didn't want to transfer with Verizon because I knew I'd just kind of stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of took the chance on myself, and I just straight up quit that job, and with no plan B. And then during that time, like this kind of fell in my lap, and got a call from Blake, kind of introducing me to the opportunity. Saw some trainings, got on some phone calls with new agents at the time, and that was it.
And then prior to Verizon, what were you doing before that?
I was actually worked at Sprint.
Okay, got it.
I was in college. I worked at Sprint. It wasn't quite as corporate, so I didn't have like all those like the health benefits and stuff like that. But throughout college, after the military, I got in.
Got it. So you went to the military and then went back to college?
No, so right after high school, I went straight into the military.
Got it.
For 4 years. Got out. Thought that I thought I had to go to college, like what most people think. And I went and got 2 degrees, and I got out, and I didn't even do anything with my degrees. Still to this day, not one day have I done anything with my degrees.
What's your degree in? I don't even know that.
Geology and geography.
Geology. Got it.
Just didn't want to continue school. Didn't want to go get a master's, and then got into sales. Found out I was pretty good with people.
Yeah, I've used my biochemistry degree literally none at all. So I feel you there. And then how did you first hear about FFL, or what stood out about it to you, I guess?
Literally, I was looking for sales positions, and at that time, I don't even remember specifically applying to an FFL ad. I just remember applying, and Blake just called me one day, and he's like, "Hey, if you can help 250 families a year, dial into phones 8 hours a day, would you do it?" I'm like, "Yeah." That was literally his first thing, and I wasn't totally hooked because I hadn't moved yet. And I was one of those agents that took like 3 months to get going, moving, and I didn't want to really go through the study material until I actually got settled in Denver. And good thing he didn't kind of let go of me.
Right.
He just kind of stayed on top of me.
Well, that's not Easton's was worse. His was like a year and 3 months until he finally came back and decided to do it. And I interviewed and talked to people when I was in college, and then I graduated and waited like 6 months and started. So for anyone out there as a manager, you don't have to blow people out the water just so they don't get started right away. You don't got to call them every day, but you still can keep them in there and check in, every once in a while if they're going to be a good fit and make sure. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was a couple of things, but a lot of people talk only about like, I crushed it. I helped 570 families. Like, what'd you do to get there? And like, there's a lot of trainings on that. But what I'd like to talk about is some of the struggles that you had early on as an agent. In particular, the one thing you talked about in the training we had the other day in Denver was you got started quick, and then you literally, like, everyone's like, don't make money and then go on a month-long vacation.
Yeah.
It's like one of the main training points we tell people. And you were like, I made money, see ya. So can you like walk everyone through that and then how you recovered from that?
Yeah. I was a train wreck at the very beginning, and I did the exact opposite of what I was told. And I was helping about 20, 25 families a week at that time. So I was making some money. And I went to Vietnam for basically 3.5 weeks and came back, and it just racked up debts because what I was doing at the time as a new agent, I was just kind of slinging basically insurance at clients and not really fitting within their needs or what they're really looking for. And I was getting a lot of chargebacks. And I came back with a bunch of debt. And at that point, it was basically do or die for me financially. And I really didn't want to go back to the corporate world of Verizon because I could have easily have gone back. And I just made a decision that I wasn't going to let that downfall of 3 weeks kind of change what the future, what I had in the future with FFL was going to be like.
Yeah, because so for everyone that's new, if you write business, if you write 10 policies or help 10 families, like 3 of them are going to fall off on average.
Yeah.
And as you get more experience, you might be able to move the needle a little bit higher, maybe 80%. And then if you're really bad, like when I started, mine was really bad. It was like 65%, right? So was it like, it was around that same range, like 60 to 80% somewhere in there was falling off?
I mean, based on the amount that I got back, I would assume it was probably around like 40%.
Yeah.
It was bad. I remember sitting on the couch and just like, I either had to make the decision to either throw in a white flag or just double down, and spent all of my money on leads and dig myself out of it, writing different carriers while paying down the debt with the current, with like Americo or whatever I had.
So like, did you set up a strategy to try to get out of that hole, or were you just like, I'm just going to go back to work and just figure it out?
Literally my strategy was, I was going to spend double the amount of money on leads and go into the office at 7:30 and not leave until I had my appointments. And at that point, I just catapulted because it was around February when that happened, and that was the convention. And I hadn't dug myself out of the hole until I went to convention, and then the convention kind of came around, and I was running like 35, 40 appointments a week to try to get out of it. And at that point, the following March is when I had like really my biggest month was helping 63 families. And that's what I got out of it pretty quickly. And then after that, it just kind of catapulted. I had no option to not get better at what I was doing.
Right. So what do you remember, like, was there anything you learned in particular at conference or anything that helped you that helped you go, okay, I can make this work? Or was it just kind of you just going out there and just doing it?
I think it was the fact of there's so many people that were doing it. And I knew I could do it. But I was doing it before I went to Vietnam, except that when I went to Vietnam, it kind of just put a wrench in it. So it wasn't the fact that I didn't believe that I could do it. It was more the fact of what could I do differently to get better much faster. And that's what it was. It's like, okay, I had like $4,000 and I was like, okay, what am I going to do?
Right.
Either have $4,000 or try to get myself out of this hole. And I would still be in a hole even if I didn't buy the leads.
Right.
I only had $4,000. Right.
Yeah, it's like what I really have to lose at this point. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, like, your mindset was like, I'm going to make this work and dig out no matter what. And I know I can do this because I've already done it. And the biggest thing I remember I learned at convention, I talked to a bunch of top producers and I was like, dude, I'm not trying, not in a rude way, but I was like, I'm very unimpressed with, or not like putting these people on a pedestal anymore. I was very unimpressed. I talked to them like, they're just normal people. And we just figured it out. They're a bit more disciplined. They might set a few more appointments. They might have a different lead strategy slightly. They might say, but everything was basically the same. Besides, I just started believing myself when I was like, dude, there's nothing different between me and Clint. Like, I can do what he's doing, you know? Is that kind of what you saw too?
I mean, yeah, you always put these people on a pedestal because really everything's so virtual. You only see them online or on Zoom, and you think they're almost like celebrities at a certain point, and then you
Right.
meet them in person. They're just like a normal person.
You're like, you're pretty jacked up.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you just,
exactly.
yeah, if you can do
Exactly.
it, dang.
And I think a lot of this business has to do with whether you believe you can do it or not. I truly believe that when I was helping 20, 25 families a week, the thought of helping 60 wasn't really there. I didn't know I could do it until I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I did it, I was like, why can't I do that on a month in, month out basis? And that's where like March, the following 3 months, I was able to help like 150, 160 families
Mm-hmm.
to just catapult me into kind of being a little bit more stable and not treating this like a hobby, and
Right.
really understanding how fast it can be taken away from you.
And then you also mentioned you had to change some things with the way you were interacting with clients so that they weren't canceling their policy, or
Yeah.
they even knew it was gonna, like, what were some things that you changed to make sure that, half the stuff you wrote wasn't falling off the books?
I think one of the biggest things is really kind of digging into the emotional aspect of the appointment. Really focusing on the questions I wanted to ask them, and what their biggest concerns were, to really kind of bring out why I was actually there, rather than saying, hey, you want insurance? Yeah, okay, here you go. And that's, I think, the agents that can ask the most in-depth questions to really kind of get beyond that, just, what's the word I'm trying to say? Just like that.
Transactional.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
transactional phase, and really ask the hard questions of the people that you build value and you build credibility and you build trust with these clients, and you show them that you're actually trying to help them and put them in the best spot possible, right? I would say that's probably the biggest thing, but that only came from running 40 appointments a week. I still sucked,
Mhm.
right? But I was running so many appointments a week that I still got chargebacks, but I wasn't taking 3-4 weeks off, and I would eventually kind of got better.
Then you got better. Yeah, and that's one thing I've always thought about is like if a client has a policy and they're like, it's a $30,000 death benefit that I'll get if I die, that doesn't mean much to them, right? But if they go, okay, I have this policy that's put in place that will cover, a year of my mortgage payments, so when I die, my kids can make sure they don't lose the house,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also going to cover my burial, so that my kid doesn't have to come up with, whatever it costs to bury me overnight. If something happens in their life and they're going, well, should I cancel this or should I cancel that? They're not going to cancel something that has a bunch of stuff tied to it, right?
Exactly.
They're going to cancel a very surface level, like, oh, it's a $30,000 benefit. Who cares? But if you do a good job as an agent and tie this and this and this and this to it, tie it to their beneficiaries and let them know what it's going to do for them, right? And through asking them questions, and they're like, I'm going to keep this because I need it and it makes sense to me, and they're not going to cancel it, right?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, a lot of people shake their heads at maybe $30,000 in coverage, but when you break it down to what that $30,000 is and what it will do, is like it will protect your mortgage for a year, or to replace your spouse's income for a year and give you some breathing room. I mean, that builds up so much more value, because from the outside looking in, $30,000 isn't all that much money.
Mm-hmm.
But when you factor in what it actually does, I mean, that's where things kind of change. And when you're asking about my chargeback ratio, I think now, I mean, I'm less than 30%. I would say I'm probably about like 26, 25%, which is better than 40.
Yeah, no doubt. The other thing I wanted to ask you too is, for as far as like coaching, both for the phones and then learning what to actually change, like at some point you have to humble yourself and go, all right, I have to be accountable for the mistakes I've made. And I have to understand that not everyone's having this experience, so I'm doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, did you get to a point where you're like, I got to start asking for help, or did you just always do it that way from the beginning?
I would say probably the first, before the vacation, I would probably just kind of more stick to myself. And then at that point, I realized that the people around me were doing so much more, or so much better than me, and helping more families during the month. I had to start reaching out for help that were better. So like if I was already doing 20, right, and the person closest to me was only doing 20, I mean, what can they really do to help me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started reaching out to people like Marco Conde and Chris Foto, that were already Hall of Fame producers. And one of the biggest things I think that changes I made was that I just didn't accept a sale at face value, right? I still wanted to know, and I still try to teach agents the same thing, is like, even if you sell something and you help a client, right, how can you get better at that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to only hear from you if you're not making any like if you're not making a sale, if you're not helping a family,
Right.
right? We can always get better, and that's what I was doing. I was even asking like for help when I was helping a family.
Yeah. And the thing I wanted to go over with you is like, with 2 years ago when you started, there was like 7 offices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're coming up on 400 offices across the country, and I feel like people still don't utilize them the way they should. Like they'll be an hour away or 30 minutes away, and I'm thinking like I drive an hour to our office because I want to get around everyone, and it just helps me. Like, what did it do for you to be in an office with other people that were just trying to figure it out with you, as opposed to just trying to sit at home and do it?
That's game changing. Ultimately, I understand. I'm not going to lie to myself to say, and I've done it before, to where I'm just going to do it at home, and then all of a sudden, like I'm only really putting in 40-50% effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being in the office with you and Easton and Silvana was game changing because we could hear each other, right? That's the one thing why I like Zooms is I still get on Zooms for myself to see, okay, well she said that, I like that, I'm going to try to implement it, and I'm always trying to critique, right? And I think if you have that pleasant, pleasant. I'm trying to think of the word. Sorry.
Like camaraderie between everyone. Yeah.
Ultimately, to where you're always just trying to get better together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah, and we were all competing with each other, and it wasn't like I hope Clint sucks this month. I was just like I hope he does as well as he can, and then I can do even better. You know, we're all like rooting each other on and competing with each other.
There's so many times where you motivated me to not stop.
Yeah.
Or if I was at home, like I would have been like, oh, I'm just gonna go watch the birds. You know.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm gonna do the dishes, whatever I have to do to get out from doing this.
Dude, I got nothing done at home. And I remember when I was in South Carolina, when I started doing this business, I realized I got nothing done at home because I would like do laundry and all kinds of crazy stuff I would never do.
Yeah.
I bet my wife wished I did that stuff, but I don't, like, honestly. And I would do it and I wouldn't get anything done. So what I started doing then, we didn't even have an office then. I would literally go drive and park my car at a park and dial in my car because I was like, I get nothing done at home.
Yeah.
It's like 100 degrees in South Carolina. I'm like, I better hurry up and dial, otherwise I'm going to die in this car, you know?
Right.
But just doing like, I think you have to know yourself, to your point, right? Like, hey, you know, if I work at home, I can get stuff done. I didn't do well. Some people don't do well. I think most people would do better in an environment where they're around other people doing really well.
And don't get me wrong, like I still lie to myself every once in a while, and I have to kind of break that and be like, oh, I can do this at home. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to drive, and I still drive. Now it's 45, well, half an hour, but I used to drive almost an hour with traffic down to Parker.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're 2 hours, less than 2 hours, there should be no excuse not to get in there.
Yeah, Easton drove an hour up, you drove an hour down, now I drive an hour up to this office, and we just do it because it helps and we can bounce ideas off each other and work with each other. I had a question for you, and we can wrap up with this. If you were like, you know, the video games where you get to create a character like in Madden or something?
Yeah.
If you were creating someone as like a blank slate that would be like the perfect insurance agent, like what are 3 things that you would be like, these are the top 3 things I would give that person to give them success doing this?
Like his attributes?
Yeah.
Not emotional, competitive, but in a light, friendly way, and super accountable.
I like that. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've asked a bunch of people that too. Like those are 3 things always come up. I think actually caring about other people instead of just money is important too. I didn't give you enough, but because those 3 were good, but that's another one I would add to it too. So, obviously you have, you know, military experience, you worked, you know, in retail sales and stuff like that. So if people are watching this and have a similar background, want to reach out to you, have questions or want to work with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. You can reach me on Instagram, C.Olson, COLSON 112, or just shoot me a text or give me a call, 928-600-0057. Just let me know. I'll get back to you.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for getting on with us. It's going to be a massive year, 750 minimally by the end of the year.
100%.
750 families helped per month for your team. Hopefully 1,000 families a month help for your team. And head